when we work with charts, it's really useful to understand a little bit about colors. So I want to talk a little bit about color spaces. So as we've seen before, we use some gradients and we use color keywords. For example, I'm using here tomato for the gradients of the area chart. But if you have better understanding of the color spaces, it can really help selecting colors that would be more meaningful. And even though you may have a designer on board, when you're creating your charts, understanding better about how to work with color can help you. So, you know, we use color like tomato, we use red, we use green, we can use transparent if you don't want to show it. With that being said, there's other ways that we can go about it. We can use other color spaces like RGB, hex, HSL, and HCLs, and there's plenty others that we can use that would make more sense in specific scenarios. So let's go through some of them. For example, if we want to use RGB, the R stands for red, the G for green, and the B for blue. So the way we work with RGB is we specify how much of that color we want. So for example, if we want no red at all, no green at all, and no blue at all, that would be 0, 0, 0. And you could see here in the IDE, they give us a little helper that kind of show that, you see, 0, 0, 0. And also if I go back to localhost and look at our area chart, you can see it's 0, 0, 0, it's black, right? And now when I start increasing the red, so it goes from 0 to 255. So if I change my red to 255, look, I got a red color. Now if I increase the green to 255, I got yellow because it's a mix between red and green. And now if I add 255 to the blue, then I got white. With RGB, we also have RGBA. The A stands for alpha. And what we can do is we can add another element to our RGB, which will stand for the alpha. And it also goes from 0 to 255 of how much alpha we can apply. And that's something we cannot do when we working with color keywords. So if we write red, we cannot specify the exact shade of gray. We cannot set the alpha. And then in addition to RGB, we also have hex. So when we work with hex, it's really similar to RGB. It's just that in hex, the color goes from 00 to FF. So you could see if I'm using 255, 255, 255, it's FF. And if I use zeros, if I'm using zeros, you see, it's matching 0, 0, 0, 0, right? So they're very similar, and that gives us really a black. So you can see the hex here, so we can work with either way. If I want to write this RGB with hex, I would just put the hash key character, and then I can just put 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and that will give me black. You can see it on the screen. Okay. And if I want to use, for example, red, now when I click on the actual color, it's going to start making sense to you. You see, so the FF is the most. So we're using 255 in RGB, or the most red, and the same with the hex. We're using the FF, which is the most of the color red, and then we got the red. And also with hex color, there's also the alpha element at the end. So if we add at the end 00, that will stand for the alpha color, or FF for the most. Okay. Another popular way to work with color is the HSL or HSLA. So it stands for hue, saturation, lightness, and alpha. The alpha again is optional. So if we want to do the same thing, we can just put SHL, and then inside we can specify how much hue we're going to use. Hue is like a wheel of colors, and it goes from 0 to 360, and each color on the wheel represented by the angle of that circular. And then we got the saturation meaning how much color we want to put inside. So for example, if we put 100%, we put as much color as possible. the lightness of the color, so I can put, for example, 100%, it goes in percentage, and the alpha goes also in percentage. Now let's take a look in the browser. What's happening here, I'm getting a white color. The reason I'm getting white color is my lightness, right? The third option is set to 100, which would light it completely. If I change it to 50, then I'm reducing the lightness, but I have full saturation. So if I use 50 saturation, 50 lightness, A for alpha, 100%, then you can see the color has less saturation, so it's sort of more dull. If I want to, for example, if I want to go to 90 degrees of the wheel, so I'll change it to 90, and that gives me the color of green. Now see how the colors really look similar. So if I go to 90 and then to 270, take a look at the colors. The green and the purple and the red, they look like they're matching each other. So when we create a theme and when we want to select a color palette, it's much more easier to work with HSLA because we can leave the rest of those values. See if I go back to 360, take a look. The color look like they match each other. It's, for example, if I were to add to the saturation, I change it to 80, take a look, now it's going to look too much bright. So if I have one color that is bright and one color that is dull, it just doesn't match. So working with HSLA or just SHL, or you can also, instead of HSL, you can also work with HCL. So working with those color palettes make more sense when we're trying to figure out what other colors we can use.